So, remember when I said the trilogy was over? Well, yeah, I had ideas for 2 more videos, so it's a saga now. It's not a trilogy anymore, it's a saga. But I swear, it's only 2 more, and then I won't do another one. Hopefully. So yes, this is Disney versus Vampires 4. The Blood Wars. So, if you guys remember from the previous video, in the third part, Dracula had been slain by Kim Possible. The Forever Night had ended, but at the end of it, Dipper had taken control of the vampire empire that he had left behind. After consuming Dracula's heart and even turning his friends and family members into vampires and making a new royal family out of it. Well, yeah, this is where it takes. This is where it takes place. This is where we. This is where we're at now. So a year has passed since Dracula's empire had fallen, and the world is kind of still picking up the pieces. It also freaks everyone out that that vampires are still out there. They're not a big of a threat anymore. In fact, there are people there's a lot of anti-vampire weapons being built in case of another uprising, because a lot of people are scared of that after 2 years of being treated like cattle. So the world is kind of on edge because they're still worried about another vampire infiltration. There's a lot of distrust in the government. There is a lot of shit to unpack. Hell, Randy, who was turned into a vampire against his will and used as a sleeper agent against the hero since the very beginning, has been doubting himself for a while. And he's like, I was a vampire for over 2 years serving Dracula's will, and he's like, even the people of Norrisville can't trust him feel like they can't trust him anymore. So Randy is actually contemplating a replacement. You also have Kim, who's kind of war-weary. She's after slaying Dracula, she is considered the one who saved the world. Although she's kind of dealing with a lot of the trauma of yeah, my boyfriend was turned into a vampire, and I had to kill someone, even if they were undead, to stop them. There's also the Mumins, who are still dealing with they were still dealing with Star's whole magic, world merge with Earth. But there's also the matter that Toffee's was resurrected to help combat the vampires, and Toffee is still alive. So they're kind of trying to unpack all of that. Everyone's dealing with shit, is what I'm saying. But the one who's dealing with the most shit is Dipper, who is now Mason. Same person. Mason, who is now dealing with his new empire. His new empire that he's trying to keep it under control. He's trying to keep it he's been trying to keep the factions from splintering more than they have. A lot of people don't trust that even though even though he was one of Dracula's greatest warriors, he still kind of backstabbed him in the end. Also, there are others who think they can do it better and think that they can bring about a new Forever Night. So there's all these factions warring, and it's leading to a lot of problems. Problems that Mason has been trying to keep under hat. He's been kind of working in the shadows. He's been, even though a lot of the heroes are keeping an eye on him and the others. However, they're not outright going to him and meeting with him in the Crimson Court. It's more like Mabel's going to them and reporting all of this because and she basically tells them, the only reason I do this is because I worry about my brother, because he spent 2 years under Dracula's literal wing. That's going to affect him. So I'm doing this so but I'm not doing this to betray him. I'm doing this to help him. And if you betray my trust, then I'm going to come down on you. And they're like, oh yeah, Mabel's good. Behind the scenes, Sasha's like, oh yeah, Mabel's scary. And they're like, you don't know Mabel, dude. So, yeah. During a meeting between the six of, Mason, Mabel, Ford, Stan, Wendy, and Seuss, all of them are kind of having a conversation about what to be done and because now they're learning that these factions have leaders that they don't know about, and he's like, Suggestions, go. And that's when Mabel more or less says, maybe we should get our friends to help us. And he's like, why? Because you've been talking to them? And she's like, what? No. I have not been talking. Talking to people is my least favorite thing. He's like, Mabel, I know for a fact that you've been, sending messages and meeting with, like, Sasha, Kim, and Goliath and all of them. I know you've been doing that behind my back. And I agree with you. They're like, everyone's like, what? He's like, yeah. At first, I knew that Mabel only became a vampire to keep an eye on me, just like all of you did. It doesn't shock me at that, and yeah, I do agree that we do need the assistance for this. And the first thing we gotta do is make a public announcement, and that's what he does. He makes a public announcement to the people of both living and undead of the world, saying that, hey, my name's Mason Pines. I was human. I was Dracula. I was one of Dracula's top lieutenants in the Forever Night, and yeah. So here's my thing. I've been more or less for the past year been trying to keep the peace between man and vampire. But there's some asshats out there, you know who you are because I know you're watching this, have been kind of trying to wreck that peace. So I'm making this is a declaration of war. And I'm going to be asking some of my friends from that time, the heroes of the Forever Night, of the Forever Night Resistance, and please come help. And to those who think they can beat me, come get me. And Kim's like, oh my god, he didn't. So he literally forces everyone's hand to go join in another war. And Kim is the first one to arrive. She punches Dipper in the face and goes, I was over this! You said you could control it! You said you could keep the peace! And he's like, I never said that, but whatever. And he's like, yeah, we need to figure out who these new forces are. We need to figure out who these enemies are, and we need to figure out how to bring them down. So we need to figure out who these new leaders are. And he's like, I know there's at least two of them. There's two others, and they're all having this big civil war, and it's a three-way war between all the factions. So ropes in all of the other remaining heroes and brings them all together to figure out what's going on. And then Dipperell is also like, after this is over, I'm going to ask the people, the United Nations, for a tithe. And he's like, what's the and they're like, what's the tithe? And he's like, every kingdom needs a land, and I need my people to have a little land, to have some land. And they're like, you can't be fucking serious. He's like, yeah, I am being very fucking serious. He's like, have you thought of, are you going to take some land from Romania? And he's like, no, I heard Chernobyl is pretty open. And they're like, are you fucking kidding me? You want to make Chernobyl the vampire capital of the world? And he's like, I want to make it the vampire capital of the world. So yeah, so the first thing they have to do is figure out who these new enemies are, and soon after some reconnaissance from the members of which they discover that both of the two faction leaders are Ambercrant, the vampire from Irish lore, who's actually, fun fact, the inspiration for Dracula, not Vlad Tepes, and Elizabeth fucking Bathory. Yeah. So they're the other two vampire lords who have been vying for control over Mason, who is like, this bat boy thinks he can be, the new warlord of, this new undead warlord and the lord of the undead, and it gets really bad. So war just breaks out, and these other two factions of vampires, and they're like, let's focus on Ambercrant first because we don't know where Bathory is. So they focus on Ambercrant first, And Ambercrant is this old crotchety vampire who's even like, I was older than even Vlad Dracula, and I knew that that idiot was going to, bring down nothing but pain on us. But I'm going to unleash the old ways on them. And that's when the heroes show up, and they're like, please tell us about the old ways. Total fight breaks out, and Ambercrant is the even harder vampire to kill. I mean, in Irish lore, he couldn't even be killed the traditional ways of killing a vampire. However, this is when Mason steps in, and he's like, I spent 2 years under Dracula. Did you think I didn't learn anything? And that's when he just unleashes just these army of bats, just this swarm of bats, and just consume Ambercrant, and they're just like taking pieces out of him. It's then that he's just consumed and ripped apart like piranhas eating a carcass, and all that's left is like just bone and a beating heart, and Dipper just rips the heart out, and he's just like, he tells Ambercrant's followers, this is the start of a new empire. This is the new, this is my empire. Join it or die, and proceeds to eat his heart. And the followers immediately step in line, and the other heroes are like, I feel like this is a problem, but it's too late for that, because now they have one more opponent for them to fight, and that's Bathory, and Elizabeth Bathory is currently in Russia, preparing for an invasion of Chernobyl, the heart of this new vampire empire. So there you go. So we will end things, I swear, with the 5th and final installment, which I will have out next. So hope you all have been enjoying these so far. I know I said it was going to be a trilogy, but ideas struck me, and then I was like, fuck, I gotta do more. So there you go. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.